The other day I made a video about attending a town hall in a purple county in Oregon, Clackamas County. And I was trying to dispel the notion, the false notion, that the stereotype of the Oregonian being like blue hair, septum pierced, like super liberal, like pinko, whatever Fox News has portrayed us as being, it could not be further from the truth. And the minute that you leave Portland, it gets very red very quickly. Not that there aren't big blue pockets, and you would not believe how many times I had to stop and refilm big blue pockets because it's tongue twister for me. Elsewhere besides Portland, right? Salem has some, Corvallis, Eugene, anytime you go to a college town. But that there is a huge cultural divide. I was saying that rural Oregon, my experience living there, and when I visit those parts of Oregon as well, those folks have more in common with my cousins in rural Indiana than they do with Portlanders. But that we would be wrong to presume that the whole state is very blue, because it's not at all. But then I got this comment: majority of Oregonians are sick and tired of being ruled by the political will of Portland, Salem, and Eugene. Democrats rule for 40 years, literally the definition of insanity. Time for big changes. I mean, I would say we are a very purple state, but if you look at the voter registration, we are still majority independent, then Democratic, and then Republican. There are more than 200,000 more registered Democrats than there are Republicans in this state. So I don't think this, folks said on my video where I was saying that a lot of Oregon is conservative, that land doesn't vote. And that's something that's very good to remember. When you look at all of these red counties, right, some of the counties I mentioned as going for Trump, you're looking at a county with a voter turnout of like 5,089, right? Very, very, very rural counties. And so that's not, like, land does not equate to population, right? Geographic area does not equate to number of people that live there. And I think that's something that folks on the right have fallen victim to frequently when they look at these maps where it looks very red, but that's because land doesn't vote. People do. And when you look at a very sparsely populated district where, of course, that land mass is going to all go red, but there might be like 300 people who live there versus, consolidated over here, you have 3 million people. And so it gives a very false sense of how red this country is and how red Oregon is to look at land size, right, as the substitute for population, because they are not equivalent. But also, I just want to take this opportunity here. I know that a lot of folks in rural Oregon don't like Portland. I know that there's a movement in Eastern Oregon for them to split off and become part of Idaho. Completely unaware of the fact that it is the tax dollars from the Portland metro area that fund the services in that part of the state. And if they were to cut themselves off from us, they would not be able to fund anything. They would be in big financial trouble in rural Oregon. And I think there is some resentment of that. That's true not only in basically every state, that the blue population centers fund everything in the more rural conservative areas, but it's also true nationwide. Blue states, our tax dollars, because we are generally more populous, our tax dollars fund red states. And so I think there's some resentment there. But like, we make sure that y'all get your social services because we believe that people's basic needs should be met. We believe that we should be paying our tax dollars toward those things. That's a good thing. I want to fund the schools. I want to fund free and reduced lunch for hungry children. I want to fund Medicare for our elders. I want our elders to be able to have telehealth. I want to fund veteran services. I want to say thank you for your service and your sacrifice. We are going to take care of you. I want to make sure that the roads and bridges and infrastructure in all parts of the state are working. Pay my taxes for those things. I'm not happy to pay my taxes so that Elon Musk and other billionaires can get a tax cut. I'm not happy to pay taxes so that the richest 0.1% of the population will receive a $180,000 tax cut, which is what is going to happen under Trump's tax plan. And that is funded by the poorest Americans losing access to their Medicaid, to multiple Medicare services, to Social Security services, like being able to deal with your Social Security stuff over the phone. Now, those folks have to go. So yeah, you have to drag your 87-year-old dad who is disabled, can barely get out of the house, and make him sit and wait at an in-person appointment. You have to negotiate that transportation for him, just for him to deal with Social Security issues that easily could be dealt with over the phone, right? We know the point of of this regime doing that, of Doge doing that, is to make Social Security inaccessible so that people just can't get their money. They'll say, we're not closing Social Security, we're streamlining it. So there's no longer any phone services. You have to do everything in person, but we won't have enough staff in office to handle all of those in-person appointments. So it will be months and months and months wait to get in to see anybody. And then good luck finding transportation. That is going to impact our rural seniors especially hard. And that brings me to my point. Folks like Cliff Bentz, who is a Republican congressman in Oregon, his district is going to be hit far harder by the cuts to Medicaid and to SNAP benefits than anybody in the Portland metro area. A significantly larger percentage of his constituents use those services than my Congresswoman Maxine Dexter's constituents here in Portland. And when y'all say you want big changes, so you want your neighbors, 1 in 3 Oregonians has Medicaid. You want your neighbors to lose their health care. You want your neighbors to lose their food benefits. You want your neighbors to go hungry. Even more than that, you want the veterans in your community to no longer be able to access services. Did you know that because of Doge, the VA is now reevaluating the service rating for folks in the VA, their disability rating? So they are saying, we know that you were injured in the line of duty and you are therefore deserving of X amount of disability. And your service rating is not just like what your check from the VA is going to be. It's not just like how much of your care is covered. You know, my father was in the Air Force for 30 years. And when he developed dementia, we had to look at putting him in a care facility. And there are VA care facilities, nursing homes, and memory care facilities. There's 2 of them in Oregon. And your service rating impacts how much of that is covered by the VA versus how much you have to pay out of pocket. So those big changes that you're voting for are hurting your neighbors, and they're probably going to hurt you. Red counties will be hurting far more than blue counties. What Doge is doing is hurting rural Oregonians far more than Oregonians in Portland, Salem, and Eugene. And that's just the reality of what's happening, and it's going to get worse and worse for y'all. And we don't want that. None of us want that for you. I don't want to see those services taken away from you just because you voted for Donald Trump. I would love to continue paying my taxes to provide those services to folks in rural Oregon. And I think most folks who voted blue would as well. That's the whole idea of our taxes, are to fund our society and to care for the citizens, to care for the people, to make us have a higher quality of life and provide us the things that we need to keep society going. Our taxes are not meant to give tax cuts to line the pockets of the most wealthy, of the folks who earn more than you or I earn in 5, 10, 20 years, that they may earn more in 1 year than we see in our entire lifetimes. But unfortunately, that is the change that you voted for. And I realize you're not quite feeling it yet. It's probably going to take a little bit more of this getting rolled out before you see how bad it's going to be. Although I will add, we are already seeing rural schools impacted heavily, including rural schools here in Oregon. That's going to get worse. That's your kids who are going to suffer more than kids in the Portland area. But not because of the blue parts of the state, not because of Portland, Salem, and Eugene, but because of Donald Trump and Elon Musk.